In a land without a queen, a princess will rise. Hey everyone, my name is Ash from Still City Reader, and this is Ash Princess by Laura Sebastian. So this story is about a girl named Theodosia. So for the summary, Theodosia was 6 when her country was invaded, and her mother, the Fire Queen, was murdered before her eyes. On that day, the Kaiser took Theodosia's family, her land, and her name. Theo was crowned Ash Princess, a title of shame to wear as her new life as a prisoner. For 10 years, Theo has been a captive in her own palace. Then one night, the Kaiser forces her to do the unthinkable. With blood on her hands and all hope of reclaiming her throne lost, she realizes that surviving is no longer enough, and she does have a weapon. Her mind is sharper than any sword. For 10 years, the Ash Princess has seen her land pillaged and her people enslaved. That all ends here because power isn't always won on the battlefield. So, obviously, the main character of the story is Theodosia. She's their main protagonist. So, obviously, whenever she was a child, the Calavaxian army took over her kingdom, which is the kingdom of Australia. Not Australia, Australia. I'll just put the name here ish. Thea was forced to watch the Thane murder her mother. She was captured before the Kaiser and given the name Thora. Years later, she is still whipped every time her people try to rebel against the Calavaxian army that more or less took over her kingdom. And after the Kaiser forces her to do the unthinkable, she obviously wants revenge for her people and the people that are still alive. So the main antagonist is obviously the Kaiser. He's the one who conquered Australia, and he opposes the people there. There are some minor characters, but even though they're technically minor characters, they still have a big part to play. So a couple of them that I'm going to mention is the Thane. He is the friend of the Kaiser. He's also the murderer of Theo's mother, and he's the father of Crescentia. Who's Crescentia? Thank you for asking. Crescentia is also known as Cress. She's of Calavaxian nobility, and she's the daughter of the Thane, and she's Theo's friend, and I use that term loosely. Then there's Prince Soren. Prince Soren, he's the son of the Kaiser who doesn't always agree with what his daddy's doing. And then there is Blaze, Artemisia, and Heron, who are all of Theo's guards, and they have a nice little part to play in this story. I must say, after reading this book, I feel like the author really knows how to convey some really badass moments, even within the first 20 pages. So, actually, on page 20, one of the things that I have a quote for says, "I bow before no one but my queen," and Pelio whispers, tripping over the hard edges of the Calavaxian language. Girl, girl, listen. And on page 135, it says, "I thought it best we speak privately before you go and do something foolish," she says. And on page 139, it says, "I've given you 2 countries to rule, my love. Now what will you give me?" If those aren't badass moments, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I must I must say the book had my attention actually on page 1. So in the prologue, which is on page 1, one of the things that I actually wrote down in my notes, which I quoted, was, "And then they cut her throat and took my name." The moment I read that, I knew, oh, I need to read this book. Like, even on page 1, I'm like, no, I gotta get through this book. In fact, I'm not normally a fast reader, and I got through this book in 2 days. So you know it's really good. So, one of the romantic moments on page 182, before I can think myself out of it, I tilt my head up to brush my lips against his. And then, continuing on page 183, it says, his warm hands grip my waist and bring me closer to him, their heat seeping through the silk of my dress. When he draws back, he stays close enough that I can feel his breath against my lips. Oh my God. So, first, let's talk about the good and the stuff that I personally liked with this book. So, what I loved about this book was the characters were complex. Like, no one is wholly good, no one is wholly bad. There's like a mix of in between, and everyone kind of has their own motives as to why they do what they do. And I do love the world building. In one of the first pages, you see like a map of everything and where everything is, and they kind of go into explaining stuff like that. So, yeah. Okay, so I would recommend this book for older teens based on some of the violent nature of things that go on in the book. But anyone who really loves complex characters and light magic system, I would recommend they read this. Overall, my personal thoughts are I absolutely loved this book. I mean, there were just so many badass moments. So, obviously, these tabs, the purple tabs, are badass moments. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of badass moments. Well, at least badass moments that I thought were badass moments. I really liked a lot of the characters. I honestly love this. This is Laura Sebastian's debut novel, and I love it. This is a trilogy, so there's this one, Ash Princess, there's Lady Smoke, and then there's Ember Queen. I haven't read the other two yet, but I can't wait to read them because this book, like I said, I read this in 2 days. It was wonderful, and I cannot wait to get the other two books. So, thank you.